Hello, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading A Court of Silver Flames. So A Court of Silver Flames is book 4 in the ACOTAR series, which is fantasy, romance, romantasy, whatever. And I will leave the links for the 3 previous videos in the description if you want to check those out before this one, or after if you want to watch things out of order, I guess. And I will also leave like the playlist linked somewhere. So like books 1 and 2 were fine. I like book 2 definitely more than book 1, but book 3 I actually really liked because it was more about the like action and fantasy more than the romance. So basically I liked each book in the series more than the previous one. So I definitely went to this one with like high expectations because supposedly if we continue with the same trend, this would be my favorite. So yeah, I definitely went into this expecting to really like this book. And I just want to say before we get into the video that there are definitely like spoilers for everything that happens in this book. And yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so I am just over 1/3 into A Court of Silver Flames. I basically read part 1. I'm on page 268. And so basically this book starts with like an intervention for Nesta because she's like self-destructing basically. And so Farah and the others decide that she needs to stop what she's doing. And she's going to go with Cassian to basically like train with him. And after some initial reluctance, she ends up agreeing to train. She just didn't want to like train in front of other people so like they could see her. And like now that they're training where no one else can see, like she is okay with it. And she's also like working at the library where there are like some priestesses, and she's kind of like becoming friends with one of them. And she thinks that like training would help them like it's helping her, so she's like trying to convince them to train as well and basically like give them the opportunity to train if they're ready for it. And also like one of the human queens is like planning something. She's working with the bone carver's brother who's called Koshi. I have no idea actually how to say that name. And they are also like working with the High Lord of the Autumn Court and his son, since he wants to be High Lord himself. He's like working with Cassian and Riz and Azrael and like all of them because, you know, he wants to be High Lord and he wants his father to not, basically. So he's kind of like helping him, but he is a dick. So there's that. And basically like they're looking for some objects that they call the trove, and there's like 3 things. There's the mask, the harp, and the crown. And then like Amron is explaining what each of them does, and she says that the mask can raise the dead, the harp can open any door, physical or otherwise, some say between worlds, and the crown can influence anyone, even piercing through the mightiest of mental shields. Its only flaw is that it requires close physical proximity to initially sink its claws into a victim's minds. And basically, like, those things were made by the cauldron, and so they think that, like, since Nesta, and also Elaine, but this is about Nesta. Although Elaine does offer to do it, but Nesta doesn't want Elaine to do it. They think that Nesta, since she was also, like, remade by the cauldron, can, like, find those objects. She can, like, somehow track them, and she ends up agreeing to do that. And at the end of like this part, we see that one of the priestesses, I think her name is Gwyn, maybe? Like, I know how it's written, I don't know how to say it. she agrees to go train with them. And like, it's going okay, but like, not enough things are happening for me to be interested in. Because like, I am somewhat interested in like the plot with the human queen and the whatever being that thing is, and the autumn court lord. But like, there's not enough of it. We sometimes get like a couple chapters about that, but it's mostly just about like Nesta and Cassian, and I honestly couldn't care less. And I do actually like when Nesta is in the library with the princesses. I do like that. But in terms of like the romance, I honestly genuinely couldn't care any less. So there's that, and that is like what most of the book is. This one is definitely very heavy on the romance and not heavy enough on the fantasy plot for me. So I am not having a lot of fun. I'm not hating it, but I'm also certainly not loving it. I am also certainly not liking it as much as the previous one. So, or even the one before that, I think. So there is that. And also it's very long, and like I said, I feel like nothing's happening other than like the romance, I guess, between Nesta and Cassian. Like, I don't even have that much to say because that's it. And I'm feeling very like meh about it, so I also have nothing to either like rave about or rant about. So like, literally just, it's fine. That is my very comprehensive review for now, is that it's fine. And yeah, it's okay. I'm not hating it. I'm certainly not loving it. That's it for now. So I am going to read part 2, which I think will leave me at like around 2/3. So that sounds like a plan. Where does it end? Hello? Okay. Part 2 ends on page 509. So yeah, that seems around another third. This book is long, like I said. So I'm going to read part 2, and hopefully something more interesting will happen in the fantasy plots. I will be more invested, because like I am somewhat invested, but like not that much. Also because we're not getting that much of it, so like there's not really much for me to be invested in. But anyway, I'm gonna read part 2, and I will be back hopefully with something better to say. Okay, so I have made it to part 3 of the book, which is just over 2/3 in. And something that I forgot to mention in my first update is that Nesta is pregnant, and they find out, I think already in this part, that basically like the baby has wings, which is a problem because since she doesn't, like, she's not in Illyrian form, she probably won't be able to give birth to a baby with wings, and therefore will probably die, and probably the baby as well. So that is a concern. And at first, like, they don't tell her about it because Reese doesn't want her to be concerned, I guess. And like, moving on from that part, Nesta is like looking for the trove, and she after that has like a nightmare, like very intense nightmare, and Riz gets there and he says that like he's able to feel her power, and that her power is pure death. And then they basically figure out that there is something like from the trove in the bog of Urith, which is basically a very dangerous place with like some ancient magical creatures that are, again, very dangerous. And so Nesta, Cassian, and Azrael go there. And first, like, Azrael is attacked, and like Cassian takes Nesta to safety and then goes after Azrael to like help him, and the two of them are fighting, but they're like taking too long. So Nesta goes to look for them, but she, like, on the way there, she sort of like gets attacked by a Kelpie, and then the mask from the trove gets to her, and she puts on the mask, and she's able to like raise the dead for her, and they fight the soldiers that are being mind controlled that are attacking Cassian and Azriel. And basically, like from that, they learn that probably since those soldiers were being mind controlled, that human queen already has the crown, I think is the crown that mind controls. Whatever object mind controls, she probably has it. And then they also learn that Nesta basically like created some magical weapons, or like weapons that were imbued with magic. And Amren thinks that that is a sign that Riz should be High King, but he does not want to be High King. And Riz and Amren don't want to tell Nesta that she has that ability, but then the others, I guess, do. So Cassian ends up telling her. And she finds out, or like he tells her that basically Amren didn't want her to know. So she's like really pissed at Amren, and she starts arguing with Amren. And then Farah gets there, and so Nesta tells Farah about like the baby, and that they're all hiding it from her, and that she will probably die giving birth. And then Riz finds out that Nesta told Farah, and he basically wants to kill Nesta for it. So she has to run, and like Cassian runs with her into the woods, basically. And that's basically what happened like in this second third. And definitely like I had more fun in this second third because we had like that whole action in the bog and more like development in that plot, which I did really enjoy. But I continue to like definitely not love it. It continues to be just too much about just like Nesta and Cassian, and again, I don't care. So yeah, I still also continue to enjoy Nesta with like the priestess Gwyn. Again, I think that's how you say her name. And also Emery, who basically works like in the town, and Nesta has sort of like befriended her. She has like joined their training, and a couple other of the priestesses. So like I do like that. I like Nesta with Gwyn and Emery. Those scenes are fun, and the scenes at the library, they're fun, but I don't care about the romance, and this is a lot about the romance. So mostly I don't care that much. But the parts like other than that, I am enjoying. So, you know, I'm certainly not disliking it, but it's like it's going okay. It feels like 3 or 3.5 stars. So, you know, not where I wanted it to be, but it could definitely be worse. So, yeah, and like I'm sure that the last third is going to be insane because like from all the books that I've read from this author, the last like 100 to 200 pages are always crazy. So I expect nothing different from this book. So I guess I will probably be more excited in the last third. At least I hope so. So like I am excited to see where it goes, especially, you know, the fantasy plot. So I am going to go and I'm going to finish this book, and I will be back with like my final thoughts on it and what happened and all that. Okay, so I have finished A Court of Silver Flames, and in this last third, we go through parts 3 and 4. 4, I think, is like way smaller than the others. And so basically, in this last third, Nesta finds the harp in the prison, and so she goes there with Cassian, and she, you know, finds a harp, and by like using the harp, she opens the like one of the cells of like a prisoner, and then that prisoner is like attacking Cassian, and supposedly he's like one of those beings that cannot be killed, but somehow with like Nesta's powers she is able to kill what cannot be killed. And then she continues to train with Emery and Gwyn as like Valkyries. They do like the Valkyrie training, and they like kind of do a final test, and they are like supposedly Valkyries now, or like they're trained as Valkyries basically. And I actually really like the three of them, so that was really nice. It was really cute. And then we find out that Nesta and Cassian are actually mates, and she doesn't want to admit it because that's like it would be losing the last of her humanity, because like only Fae have mates, humans don't have mates, so she doesn't want to really admit that she's not like human at all anymore. And so they argue, and then she is with her two friends, and they are like, the three of them are kidnapped. And basically we learn that they are taken to the blood rites, which is a thing that like the Illyrian warriors go through, like a test. And basically like supposedly there are like no weapons, they have to just fight with whatever they can make, and they have to like climb a mountain at the end. And they like all wake up separately. They're like in different areas of the blood rites, and Nesta sees that like there are actually weapons, like someone sneaked weapons in, and like all of the men that are there just like don't want them as warriors and like don't see them as warriors, but they basically like fight their way to each other. And eventually they do get to the mountain, and they like start climbing it. And then with the other characters, they learn that Eris, who was like working with them, was taken by the human queen, and she's like controlling him with a crown. And then they are caught as well when they go to like get Eris. And like I said, the girls are like climbing the mountain, and then some of the men who are there, and actually one of them was Emery's cousin, who is a piece of shit, they get to like, they're climbing as well, and they're like catching up, and Nesta says that like she will hold him off, and for like the other two girls to go ahead and finish climbing the mountain. And eventually, after some arguing, after someone being knocked out, they go climb the mountain, and they basically like, the other two girls get out while Nesta is like fighting those guys, and there's only like Nesta and that cousin of Emery left, and they're fighting. And Nesta is struggling because also like they don't have magic there. Magic in the blood right like doesn't exist pretty much, so it's just her fighting with like her physical abilities, I guess. And she is struggling. Like she managed to kill all the others, but that guy, like she's really struggling. And then out of nowhere, Cassian appears and kills that guy, and then says that he's gonna kill Nesta because he's also being controlled by the queen with the crown. And then the queen gets there as well, and she basically wants the trove, like she wants Nesta to trade the trove for Cassian's life, basically. And then Cassian is like gonna kill himself, but then Nesta, with her powers that certainly appear, they like, she's able to unmake the queen, so she just like ceases to exist, I guess. And you know, all seems to be well on that front. But then they learn that Nesta is like giving birth, and both her and the baby are dying, so like they rush there. And then Nesta uses like the whole trove. She uses the harp, the crown, and the mask, and she is like talking to the cauldron itself and like the mother herself, and saying that like she will give all the powers back if they basically show her how to heal and like help the baby survive. And that does happen. They do survive. And Nesta, basically like she was giving all her powers, but she thinks that someone stopped it, and that someone was like the mother, and gave her a little bit of her powers left. And she like changed herself for like, if she one day was to have children with Cassian, like she could give birth to that child. So like some of her power like still remains, but like mostly she did give it back. And I think that is pretty much how it ended. So let's go into my final thoughts. So starting off with the characters, and starting off with Nesta, because she was definitely like the main character of this book. She definitely grew on me, and I really like to see her, sorry, this hair is bothering me. I really like to see her character development, and I also really like to see her friendship with Emery and Gwen. Like I really love to see the three of them become friends. And I also really like to see her like starting to like patch her relationship with Farah as well. And then Cassian, like I already like Cassian, so I just continue to like Cassian, I guess. And Emery and Gwen, like I said, I really like their friendship with Nesta, and also like with each other. And I really like them individually, and I really like to see them like training and like getting stronger, and like really trying to overcome their fears and their trauma. I really like all that part. And the others, like they didn't really appear as much, like Farah and Riz. And I mean, Azrael was there for like a good while because he also helped train the girls. And I also like to see like Amran and Nesta sort of like again, starting to patch their friendship. And Moore was also there for a little bit, but like obviously they weren't like as much in this book, but I like to see them like for when I got to see them. Like I basically like all of the characters, like all of the characters that were, you know, good, like on our side, obviously not the villains. So like, you know, I really like all of that. I just didn't really care about the romance. And unlike the previous book, there it was very focused on like the war, the action, the fantasy. This one was a lot about the romance, and it's not like I hated it. I just didn't care. So like I was not invested at all in all of those parts. I was just like kind of bored. And like the fantasy slash action, I got increasingly more invested in it because like in the beginning I think I said that I wasn't like I was interested but like not that much, but I definitely got like more interested, more invested in that plot as the story went on. But still I feel like it was mostly about the romance. So there's that. And the last third was definitely like more intense than the rest of the book, but it wasn't like as crazy as I expected it to be actually. And so basically, like to summarize what I've said and like my feelings overall in the book, I like the fantasy and the action part of the book. I really like the friendships that were made slash sort of started to be fixed, but I just didn't care about the romance, and there was a lot of romance in the book. A lot of like most time I feel like of the book was spent on the romance, so I didn't care about that part. And so overall I liked the book, I just didn't love it, but I did, you know, still have fun with all of the fantasy and action that we got, and I am giving it 3.5 stars. So still definitely a positive rating. I think that's the rating I gave to the second book as well, and I feel like I feel similar about those two because they were both a lot about the romance, and I didn't care about that, but the part that was, you know, about the fantasy in both of those books I was like pretty invested in. So yeah, I think that feels right. And yeah, I've basically caught up with the series. I think I saw that there is like another book at least coming out of the series, but for now I am caught up, which I am very happy about because I am in the middle of so many series. And yeah, that is it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!